In traffic, like everything else, it's not what you know, but who you know. And in this case, it's not really even about who you know, it's about who you see. We know that people behave differently in urban environments. One of the first questions that we wanted to have answered in the Mental Frameworks project that I completed for FDOT, the first question we wanted to answer is, how would you get somebody to drive 35 miles an hour or less without having to tell them to do it? And at first that seemed like a really easy question to answer. The farther we got into it, the more I realized that it had absolutely nothing to do with the way that the environment was built or designed. That environment could set the frame for a great experience and a really attentive drive. Or it could give you an opportunity, but even the opportunity was no guarantee. The farther I dug into the data, the more I realized the key issue was whether or not people could see other people. And that comes back to the way that we're built as human beings. As human beings, we see people before we see anything else. Our eyes land there first and they'll come right back to them. There's a reflexive component to this. It's literally hardwired into your brain. There are specific structures in your brain that are made for seeing people and for reading body language. And then even in the rest of your brain, about 2/3 of your gray matter gets conscripted in actually decoding faces and bodies when you see them in the real world. And so every variable that we looked at that we thought might impact the way that people drive, the way that they pay attention, the speed that they choose, the jerk, the way that they either drive really, really smoothly or they respond really, really, how do I put this? They respond really readily. Every single bit of that ended up tied back to whether or not there was going to be a person in that space. So, for instance, we measured corridor width 6 different ways. Lane width had a very statistically significant result that made very little difference. It was real, but very small. The actual pavement width from edge to edge worked, but it required a lot of other things to make it show you good results. The one variable that made the biggest difference was the width of the corridor. And we were able to tie that back to whether or not people would actually be visible to the driver in that corridor or not. We'll talk about that next week. But the variables that kept floating to the top, every single one of them, had some component to it that was related to whether or not the driver would actually have a chance of interacting with another human being in that space. When they had a chance, their behavior changed, their attention changed, their multitasking dropped really dramatically. And that's because we're made to see and interact with other people. This isn't just something that we train, like we talked about last week, that's an automatic thing that we've learned to do because we've done it over and over and over again. This is something that you do because your body is made to do that. And you've been training on that from the moment you first heard your mother's voice in the womb. Other human beings are the most critical thing to you as a human being, above everything else. In fact, it was William White, who was the parks manager for New York City in the 40s. He was the one who said, what draws people most is other people. And it's still true to this day. So, the second of the mental frameworks, and I'm going through a series right now with you to do a quick summary every week on video to talk about each of the 7 mental frameworks. This is the second one, and the second one has to do with humans. Human perception is prioritized neurologically above everything else. Loud noises, might catch your attention just a little bit faster, but only because it could be another person that's about to hurt you. Every other variable we looked at, when it had to do with people, it floated to the surface as really important and having a really big impact. All of the variables that had nothing to do with people might be statistically significant. There were a lot of things that were, but their impacts were really, really tiny. If you're in an environment where they're never going to be interacting face to face with another human being, then they're just going to drive like they're driving Mario Kart, because they're manipulating a large machine around a whole bunch of other machines. And the only thing you're really looking at is the machine. Even when we talk to people in focus groups, pedestrians and cyclists, they don't talk about the driver hit me. They will continually say, that car is about to hit me, or the cars are always out to get me, because they're thinking in terms of the big box, not the person driving the big box. And so, like everything else in this world of any importance, it's always about the people. And when you really understand that, your roadway design begins to shift. If you recognize that they're not going to interact with other people at a speed that they actually can interact, then you expect that they're not going to see the people on the side of the road, and you need to protect them accordingly. If you can put them in an environment where they're working face to face with other people, you'll automatically get their attention and their speed will come down with it. So today we were talking about people, and I'm going to continue this series over the next few weeks because I'm in book production mode right now and I don't have a huge amount of time to create new written content. So for a while, we will go through and we'll do all 7 of the mental frameworks in this format. We've already done it on written, and if you look at the front of the blog there on Profound Insights, you will find a summary of the 7 mental frameworks. So until next week, remember, it's all about the people. See ya.